Hi guys and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be covering some of the brewing equipment that you don't necessarily need to own, but probably should have anyways because they're going to make the process a little bit more fun and definitely easier on you. The first piece of equipment I'm referring to is a proper mash tun. This is what you'd use for steeping your grains instead of one or more large cooking pots. The front of the cooler was originally fitted with a spigot. As you can see, that has been replaced by a ball valve. Now this offers two benefits. First, I can control the flow of my wort, which is really important. A slower runoff helps to boost your brewing efficiency. And second, I can drain my wort without having to press down on that stupid spigot. Inside the cooler, the end of the ball valve is connected to a hose barb. More importantly, the hose barb is connected to what's called a bazooka screen, which is actually the steel covering from a supply hose. The bazooka screen allows the wort to exit the mash tun while filtering out the grains. You can also get mash tuns that use what's called a false bottom instead of a bazooka screen. They do the same thing but are constructed a bit differently. If you're crafty and like DIY projects, you can build your own mash tun for around $80. I built this one here following an online tutorial, which I've added a link to on the course website. Please note that the pipe fittings you'll need to make one may be slightly different from the tutorial since there are several coolers on the market. Another optional piece of equipment is what's called a hot liquor tank. It's a vessel that's used for heating your strike and sparge water. It's best to have a hot liquor tank connected directly to your mash tun in order to avoid heavy lifting and potentially spilling hot water on yourself. Like a brew kettle, your hot liquor tank will ideally have a built-in thermometer and ball valve, but it's not necessary. In my lesson on water, I discussed the importance of getting your mash to a particular pH level. If you're going to make any adjustments to your water supply, there are a few things you'll need. First, you'll need to purchase some pH test strips. Buy ones that are designed specifically for beer brewing as they make reading them easier. Second, you'll need some lactic acid. This buffer works to lower your mash's pH level. And finally, you'll need calcium carbonate, which works the opposite way, increasing the mash's pH. If you're making an all-grain batch, or if you're planning on adding grains to your extract brew, we call that a partial brew, you might find it helpful to purchase some brew bags. They're usually made of muslin and work like giant tea bags for your grains. What I like about them is that they make mashing very easy. Because the grains are enclosed in a kind of netting, you never have to worry about husks getting into your wort. The downside of using brew bags, however, is that they often lower your brewing efficiency by about 5 to 10%, which means you have to actually add more grains than you would otherwise. Another piece of equipment you can get is a hydrometer to test your original and final gravity, something I'll show you how to do later on in the course. It will allow you to calculate your brewing efficiency as well as the ABV of your brews. If you decide to get a hydrometer, you also need a test jar. The idea is that you pour your wort or fermented beer in the test jar and allow your hydrometer to float inside the liquid. Test jars come in glass and plastic, and I definitely recommend getting a glass one. Homebrewers are sometimes frustrated by the lack of clarity in their beer. They want their brews to look perfect. If clarity means that much to you, then another thing you can purchase is Irish moss. You can get it in tablet form. It's also known as whirlflock. All you have to do is add it to your wort towards the end of the boil, and the Irish moss soaks up little bits of grain and hops. It's pretty neat when you see it in action. Although optional, I recommend purchasing a plastic bucket with a capacity of at least 6 gallons. It makes sterilizing your equipment much simpler. Just pour your solution into the bucket, submerge your gear for the allotted time, and you're done. Another optional piece of equipment is a funnel. It makes pouring your wort into a growler or a carboy much easier and again helps prevent you from making a mess. Those of you using a plastic bucket really don't need a funnel. The next item I've classified as optional but can easily be considered essential is a siphon for transferring your beer into bottles. Technically, you can just pour your beer out of the fermenter without one. If you do, however, you'll end up with plenty of trub in your bottles. Trub is a combination of hops and yeast sediment that can affect the flavor of your brews, and not in a good way. Having a siphon allows you to extract your fermented beer while leaving the trub behind. The final piece of equipment you choose to buy, but don't necessarily need, is a bottle sanitizing tree. They make sanitizing your bottles so much easier. I definitely recommend buying one. But again, it is optional. So that wraps up this part of the lesson. In the next video, I'm going to be teaching you how to properly sanitize your gear. I'll see you guys there.